change. So you need a disposable mask, you need disposable gloves, you need the alcohol swab. So let me tell you what comes in the kit, because this is kind of just listed all together, so it's easy when you're pulling stuff out of your box to know, like, so you need your kit and then the extra stuff. So the extra stuff that's not in your kit would be your mask, your disposable gloves, some alcohol pads, and a bio patch. Okay, those are the things that are not in your kit. Otherwise, then you just need the kit. Okay, if you are not good with sterile gloves, some of the guys have a harder problem with the sterile gloves that come inside the kit. Grab a pair that you know that you can work well with. A lot of times the ones that you buy, you can get them over at the supply store or whatever, tend to work a little bit easier. So for your actual checkoffs, if you would prefer that, I would do that, okay? So you don't fumble around when you're putting on sterile gloves, okay? All right, so I need, then I'm gonna have my central line kit, and then I'm gonna have, this is your bio patch. And what's important about these is they actually have an antibiotic on that blue, the blue part, okay? So the blue part will go down, or yeah, I put that wrong. All right, so I bio patch that. Okay. Okay, so to be the same thing, I'm always checking to make sure I have an order to do the dressing change. I'm going to gather my supplies. So I pretend that I'm walking in my patient's room, I knock, I'm cleaning my hands as I walk in, introduce myself. Hello, I'm Shelly, I'm your nurse today, and I have an order to change the dressing on your central line. Can you tell me your name, date of birth? Do you have any allergies? Do you have allergies to betadine, iodine, or shellfish? No, okay. All right, so what I'm gonna have to do, I'm gonna set up, and when I'm ready, I'm gonna lay you flat. I'm gonna have you turn your head to the side while I change the dressing. Okay, so I've got a nice clean set here. All right. So I'm gonna put on my disposable gloves to take off the dirty dressing, okay? I don't need sterile at this point, so I've got my gloves, and I've got my mask. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna lay you flat. I forgot I was pushing saline through or something. All right, so to remove the dressing, we use an alcohol pad. It just kind of helps to pull the dressing off. So you're going to pull the dressing towards the towards the actual insertion site, because you don't want to pull away at risk for actually pulling the line out, okay? So I'm gonna use the alcohol here. Oh, you know what, I did forget one thing. I need you need a 4x4 dressing. Is that on your list? A 4x4 dressing? Yes, a 4x4 gauze dressing. I'm going to just take one out of here. This would be a sterile 4x4 dressing. Okay. All right, so now I'm going to go back. So I'm removing the dressing. Okay, you want to pull gentle. A lot of times these sites are, you know, it's sensitive. So just kind of take your time, pulling all the corners towards the middle. You're assessing the site. Was the dressing intact when you came in? Is there any drainage? Are you looking for any bloody drainage? You're looking for any color drainage. Is it yellow? Is it green? Is the skin red? Is there edema? Okay, so you're just kind of assessing and looking at the site. making sure that your lines are all clamped. Okay, the patient's head is turned to the side. All right, so right before I am ready to remove the dressing, okay, I've kind of got it all bundled up there. All right. The bio patch, I'll show you in a minute. Okay, so you just kind of leave it there to keep the site covered, and this is when I go for my sterile 4x4. And you're gonna grab it from the corner because you're gonna place it over top of the insertion site, so you want it to stay clean, okay? So I'm grabbing just the corner, okay, and then I'm removing the dressing, and I'm gonna place it over, okay? I'm looking at the bio patch, I'm looking, is there any drainage or anything on there? Okay, and then we'll throw this away. By the way, these are sutured down, so they're not going to be wiggling around, okay? So they're sutured to the skin so they stay, okay? So you've got that there. Now I'm getting ready to open up my sterile kit here. So I'm going to remove the old gloves. I'm going to wash my hands, okay? Take off my mask. And then now I'm going to open up my kit. Okay, you're making sure everything's intact here with your kit. The expiration is good. I'm going to make sure that I have a space here to work with. Okay, I want it to be near my patient, so I'm not having to do any far reaching. I've got my stuff here, my patient's here. All right, so I'm going to open my kit. Okay, I'm going to put my mask on first. Okay, set my gloves over here to the side. All right, so I'll go ahead and put my gloves on, and then I'll set up, actually. So what's most important here is that you put your bio patch, you have to put it in your kit, because once you put your sterile gloves on, you can't touch this because it's not sterile, okay? So anytime before I ever put on sterile gloves, I always pause and I'm like, okay, do I have everything that I need set up before I put on my sterile gloves? Because then, you know, you can only touch anything that's sterile. So your bio patch needs to go in. So make sure you write that in your notes if it's not in there, that the bio patch needs to go in before you put your sterile gloves on. Okay. Okay, once you have sterile gloves on, you don't want your hands to go under your sterile field. So what I do is I just take that, and you can just wipe it off to the side. I use my feet to kind of make sure that everything is close by. So I'm okay to go ahead and set up my sterile field. Shiny part goes down. Remember, you have a 1-inch border. Okay, and then I set my stuff up from left or right, so I don't ever have to go like, wait a minute, was I supposed to do this or supposed to do that? So I set it up in order. So first, you're gonna clean. So I look, and so you start with the alcohol, and then you do the betadine, and then you're going to measure, and you put your bio patch on, and then your dressing. Okay, so I'm ready to start cleaning. So then you touch from the middle of the dressing, because I don't want to retouch where I touched with dirty hands, because I pulled from the corner. So I touch from the middle. I would have a trash can here. Right. And then you're going to clean. There are 3 swabs in here. Okay, so you start from the middle and you go out. Okay, you want to clean the insertion site, you know, you give it a little bit of pressure, a little bit of scrub for maybe like 5 to 10 seconds at the insertion site, okay? And then you start moving around in circles, okay? You don't ever want to go, if you've touched an area out, don't ever go back in. Does that make sense? You move from the insertion site out. Again, these will be sutured down on your patient, so what you do is you can actually go right over top of the line. You guys need to see, you can come up and look. So you're gonna go all the way, you need to cover the area what your dressing is gonna cover. So that's how wide your circle needs to go, okay? You go over top of even the hub of the line, okay? So I did one. Same thing, about 10 seconds again at the insertion site. So you're kind of scrubbing real good, and you move out. Same exact thing, same circles. You can even go and get under the line a little bit, okay? So, and then you're gonna do your third. So scrub. Okay, this is the most important part, so don't rush through the cleaning, okay? All right, so I've done all 3. And then you need to let it dry, okay, before you start with the betadine. I'll tell you on a person, it dries pretty quickly. On these mannequins, sometimes they take a minute to dry. So the alcohol is dry, so now I'm gonna do the betadine. And that's why it's so important to assess whether they have the iodine allergies, because you clean with betadine. These are really, really wet, so you can kind of squeeze them out a little bit for the mannequins, okay? So again, same cleaning. Give the insertion site about 10 seconds, and then you can actually see with the betadine how you make the circles. Okay. Again, I wish I had a trash can. At the center, squeeze, scrub a little bit. So I would be putting these swabs in the trash. I would not be putting them back into my sterile field, okay? That's why we don't record the first time around. Okay, so that's the third one. I'm gonna throw that away, and you're gonna let that dry. So I'll tell you, the betadine does not dry in the mannequin. So what we'll do for you is we will dry it, okay? We have to take this off the mannequins because once I put the dressing on it, it's really hard to pull off of the mannequins. So you would never do this. You would never blow on it. You cannot waft over it, anything. You have to wait and just let it dry, okay? So you're kind of just talking to the patient. You doing okay? I'm just letting the cleaning solution, the betadine, dry. And once it's dry, and you can't do that. There you go. Once it's dry, I'm going to measure it and we're going to dress you up, okay? So that is all dry. So now you have your measuring tape here. So you're measuring with the centimeters. There are inches and there are centimeters. Keep this close and in control because you don't want the measuring tape to touch anything dirty like your arms or the table. So you don't want to let it loose and be hanging around. A lot of people like to just rip it. You just need to make sure that you have enough to measure still. You don't cut it short, okay? What I do is I kind of just bundle it up in my hand. So you're gonna start from the line by the 0. Okay, do you guys wanna come up and see? So you're gonna measure from the insertion site to the hub. Okay, so this would be sutured down like this. So I'm going to measure 0, I would say 3. Okay, can you guys see that? Right there, it's the flexible part of the catheter is what you're measuring. Okay, so that's going to be 3 centimeters. Okay, so you need to remember that for documentation. It's very important. Okay, so I'm at 3, so you can go ahead and dispose of this. Now you're going to put your bio patch on. So the bio patch has a little open mark over. So you're going to wrap it around the catheter. All right, and then you're going to put your dressing on. Okay, so once you have your dressing and it's intact, then you can sit the patient up. Save this because this has your, where you can initial date and time it. Okay, I'll get that. Okay, so you're going to, right here, you would initial date and time, write on this first. Do not write on the patient. So you're going to write it and then put it on. So I'm going to go ahead and sit my, I'm going to sit my patient up. Thank you. Okay, the dressing is intact. Let me go ahead and label it. So its initials date is the 17th or 18th? Okay, initial date time. You want to put it on the edge because you do not want to cover the site so you can be looking at it. So I put it right there on the edge of the tape there. Okay. All right. And that's it for the dressing change.